Okay, guys, we're going to get started. Everyone could grab their seat. Budget and Appropriations Committee reconvening. My name is Eric Costello, 11th District Chair of the committee. I'm joined to my left by Councilman Leon Pinkett, Vice Chair of the committee from the 7th District. To his left, Councilman Isaac Yitzi Schleifer from the 5th District, member of the committee. Councilman Zeke Cohen from the 1st District. Councilman Chris Burnett from the 8th District. And then to my right, Councilman Robert Stokes from the 12th District. To my immediate right is Marguerite Curran, staff to the committee. We also have Rebecca Tabb from Council President Young's office, who is counsel to the council. It's a true story. We have Karan Banks, Poetry Deal, and Karen Stokes representing Mayor Catherine Pugh. Caroline Sturgis from Bureau of Budget and Management Research, who's been here all week with us. Thank you. So we have a panel. This is going to be youth services. We have Health Department, Family League, Baltimore City Rec and Parks, Mayor's Office of Human Services, Mayor's Office of Employment Development, the Enoch Pratt Free Library, and Baltimore City Public School System. As with all the panels, Carolyn, if you want to just play maestro here and cue them up, please. Folks from the agencies, when you get up, if you could please state the agency you are with, your name, and your position. Also, please acknowledge or recognize all of your staff that are here, saying their full name and their title. Staff that are here with agency heads, I would ask that you please briefly raise your hand or stand up when you are acknowledged so that everyone on the council knows who you are. I ask that the slides be kept to, the presentations be kept to no more than, what do we want to say here, 3 4 minutes apiece? Oh, yeah. 3 4 minutes apiece, with the exception of, I'd like to hear a little bit more from, as I think we all would, the Family League. So maybe, in the 5 to 6 minute range, Damon. Please be sure to speak clearly into the microphone. This is being televised currently on Comcast on channel 25 and also streamed live on charmtv.tv. So with that, ma'am, please kick it off.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we have put together the slides for all of the agencies within this panel. We will start off with educational grants. And as we've done with the previous panels, we allow the agencies to go through all of the panels, and then at the end, you guys will ask questions.
Hi, I'm Laura Ohanian with Baltimore City Public Schools. I'm the Director of Differentiated Learning. I'm joined here with Sabrina Sutton. She is the Director of Community Engagement. And we also have Laura Jones, the Manager of Teaching and Learning, Allison Perkins-Cohen, the Chief of Staff, Duana Starrett, and Melissa Broom, who are our legislative liaisons. Okay.
Educational grants first. Is educational grants here? Educational grants here?
I'm asking for youth services first. School system.
I can, if you want, I can.
Yeah.
So
That's fine.
that's all right. We don't need slides.
You don't
Just,
need slides? Okay.
no,
Sure. We'll talk through it. That's fine.
just talk.
Okay.
We'll listen.
All right. So our out-of-school time options include...
Hang on 1 second. Colleagues, I got a... Yeah. This is youth services, yeah. That's the slide deck. We're good. We got what
Okay,
you're.
great.
This is this presentation, right?
That's right.
We're
And
good.
I'll tell you, so we're on slide 2, and I'll just let you know what slide I'm on as we go through.
That's fine.
Great. So the majority of our out-of-school time options are funded through individual budgets, through general or grant funding. We encourage schools to provide these out-of-school time options as it meets their needs of their students and their community. And during the summer, we also provide a variety of programming, which I'll talk about in a second. Slide 3. Our out-of-school time options range from, I'm sorry? Oh, great.
That's all right.
Sure.
We can live without slides. Just continue.
Okay, because I don't have the,
Do you have your presentation?
yeah, I do.
Marguerite, we're good.
Okay,
Okay. All right. We got it.
all right, great. Sorry. All right, the out-of-school time options range from before-school academic support, after-school. We have vendor-provided programs. We have enrichment opportunities, including robotics and chess. And then we have weekend opportunities and a variety of clubs. This summer, we're planning to service over 6,500 students in a variety of programs. Those programs include an elementary summer program, which we partner with young audiences for. An Engineers of the Future program, a middle grades promotion, an AP Summer Academy, a high school program, an English learner program targeted for our high school students with interrupted schooling, extended year programs, a Bach Fellows program, and a JROTC.
Hi, again, my name is Sabrina Sutton, and I'm the Interim Executive Director in the Office of Engagement. I'll be talking about community schools. City schools contracts with Family League of Baltimore in the amount of $210,000. Family League facilitates the following supports for the citywide implementation of community schools and out-of-school time programs. The supports that they give is quarterly training and networking for all community school coordinators, on-site coaching and support of community schools and out-of-school time program leadership, continuous quality improvement process for all OST programs, data collection and evaluation, financial oversight and management, reporting requirements for the City of Baltimore and the Governor's Office. So community and out-of-school time. In addition, individual schools contract with 29 community-based organizations in the amount of over $1 million to provide community school services in their schools, and over 516,000 for out-of-school time. The contributions are made from individual school budgets, general and/or grant funds. The total contract amount is $1,830,000, which includes the district's contribution of $210,000. And then you see the compilation of community. We have 45 community schools and implementation funded in partnership with Family League of Baltimore, 49 schools implementing the community school strategy, 2 schools completing a community school planning process, and 49 out-of-time programs connected to the community school strategy. So some examples of core community school strategies are enhancing academics through additional partnerships and or training parent community volunteers, expanding access to health and mental health services, stabilizing families through emergency supports and ongoing counseling in the home and in the community. We didn't have a representation for athletics, so I will present. District office resources investment is over $3.6 million. Coaching stipends and game officials, $2.2 million. Transportation for games and practices, $1 million. Equipment refurbishment and support is $300,000. School police support for evening events is $160,000. So our fall programming are listed: cross country, football, soccer, volleyball, unified tennis, middle school basketball. Our winter sports are basketball, indoor track, swimming, wrestling, dance, unified indoor bocce. In the spring, we have badminton, baseball, lacrosse, softball, tennis, track and field, unified outdoor bocce, middle school track and field. Thank you.
Want to continue with the other agencies?
Yeah, let's go through all of them.
Let's go through all of
running
them?
the show.
Okay, sure. Health Department? No one, no one here from the Health Department? Oh, oh, oh. Yeah.
Good afternoon. I'm Mary Beth Haller. I'm the Acting Deputy Commissioner for Youth Wellness and Community Health. And I'm here today with our team, Francine Childs, who is the Assistant Commissioner for School Health, Stacy Tuck, who is the Director of Maternal and Infant Health, and, sorry, and what's the last name? Greg Cilio for Youth Violence Prevention today. Thank you.
Who's that distinguished gentleman in the back with the pink tie?
Well,
Is he with you?
And that is our Deputy Chief of Staff, Jeff Amoros.
Just checking, I didn't know. It looked familiar.
Gotta have investments in the first, man.
I'd like to start with maternal and child health. This service operates to promote positive birth outcomes, including nurse home visiting programs, nutrition support, family planning services, and the infant and child mortality fatality review. We improve the health of children, enhance readiness for kindergarten, promote positive youth development through immunization, Baltimore Infants and Toddlers Program, and year-round after-school programs. I'd like to let Stacy speak to.
Sure. Thank you, Mary Beth. Good afternoon. So just to review the performance measures that we have chosen to highlight, there are many others that we could have listed, but we just have two. So the output that we have chosen to feature is the number of unduplicated families receiving case management services by professional home visitors. I have the distinct pleasure of being the director of the Maternal and Infant Care Program, which is staffed by licensed registered nurses, and we operate what's called the Nurse-Family Partnership Model. You may notice that over the past several fiscal years, we have actually seen a change in our target numbers of families that we want to reach. And you may be concerned to see that there is a distinct decrease between FY17 and this current fiscal year and the projected FY19 fiscal year. The reason for that decrease is that we had a total of 258 families that we were serving in FY17 because we were operating two different home visiting models at that time. And we also had complementing our staff, not just registered nurses, but we also employed social workers as well. So we, at that time, were implementing the Healthy Families America home visiting model, which is what the social workers and some of the nurses were doing, in addition to the Nurse-Family Partnership model. Our partner, who you'll hear from later on, operates several Healthy Families America home visiting programs, and we felt that it would be better for the city and more cost-effective if we at the health department discontinued our particular Healthy Families site because their models are staffed with paraprofessionals, whereas we had professional staff. So we basically were paying twice as much to get the same service that our partner at Family League was doing. So now we are concentrating only on the Nurse-Family Partnership model, which limits the number of families that you can see. As you can see in FY18, we have a target of serving 100 families, which we are meeting, because each of our 4 nurse case managers is only limited to being able to see 25 families. In FY19, we project being able to hire a few more nursing staff, which would bring our target to 150 families. The next performance measure deals with effectiveness in terms of the percentages of children receiving home visiting services that we screen for certain social and emotional developmental things. You'll see that we are raising our targets in this current fiscal year and the next one to 60% because the nurse-family partnership model is actually more rigorous in terms of the number of times that we screen families and the number of times that we actually see the families that we are serving. Are there any questions about any of that? Okay, all right, thank you.
We're going to go through all the presentations now.
I'd like to now address school health services. This service provides the delivery and health services and health suites and school-based health centers to students enrolled in Baltimore City Public Schools, including interventions in elementary schools, nursing case management for children with special health needs, mandated immunizations, hearing and vision impairments, case management and coordination with primary care, and mental health and substance abuse services. I'd like to turn it over to Francine Childs, who is the Assistant Commissioner for School Health Services.
Good afternoon. Just to elaborate a little bit more on school health services, COMAR and the education article require that school health services be delivered in the jurisdiction with a partnership between the local education authority and the local health department. It doesn't describe how that should happen, but in the city of Baltimore, we've wisely chosen that the school system contracts with the health department to provide health services. And we do that with two models as was described. Our health suites, which are staffed by community health nurses and certified nursing assistants, and we provide the basic health services that one would get in a school: medication administration, care for acute illnesses and injuries, and care for chronic diseases. We also have in schools school-based health centers, which are like mini doctor's offices in schools, where a child can get primary care services through the services of a nurse practitioner. We prescribe and dispense medications. And we find that students can stay in school because rather than a parent having to leave school, they can have the child seen at the school-based health center, have the dose of medication given, and the child can go back to school. Another benefit of the partnership that we have with the school system is that in our school-based health centers, children can be given immunizations. We have a 99.8% immunization rate, which is among the highest in the country. And again, as we look at the performance measures, we talk about our effectiveness, the percentage of children who return to class after a health suite visit. And that means that a child, again, can go to the nurse, which is, again, in the health suite, it's 83%, but in a school-based health center, it's actually around 95%. But a child can go to the health suite, get served, and return to school. Encompassed in the second measure of our 350,000 plus visits are medication administration. There are some children who, without the services of the health suite, would not be able to attend school. These children require blood sugar checks multiple times during the day. Children require asthma medication. We provide skilled nurse visits. There are children at the Bear School who have tube feedings, they have gastrostomies, they're very involved, and without the services of the nurse, children would not be able to attend school, and certainly if they're not in school, then they can't learn or become productive citizens that we want. So we look upon our partnership with the school system as very beneficial to our students. But one of the programs we want to highlight, which is not there, in a partnership with the school system, we have the Vision for Baltimore program, which provides screenings for children, and once they're screened, they can actually get on-site in school eye exams from an optometrist, and they can also get glasses right in school. And what we've delivered over 5,000 pairs of glasses to students, and again, we're looking for them to improve their academic success by these services. Thank you.
And the last area we would like to cover today is youth violence prevention. The service includes community-based trauma-informed models to provide support services and mental health intervention for victims of violence and their families. It also includes the health department's trauma training offerings to other city agencies, community organizations, and other stakeholders. I would like to let Greg Cilio speak about this.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Mr. President, members of the council. I'm going to be really, really brief. So the Office of Youth Violence Prevention, as many of you know, really encompasses Safe Streets was one of the main components of that. And you guys heard from MOCJ earlier, and you know that that program is transitioning. So I'm not really going to focus on the performance measures as much. We've always either met or exceeded those. In 17, we certainly did, and I'm sure that trajectory will continue as the program expands and there's more and more investment from the mayor's office. But just sort of the future of that office, the commissioner mentioned earlier this idea of us really focusing on that cycle of violence and trauma. So really, breaking that cycle and really addressing who are the people that have been, experienced trauma, who have been victimized in all of these scenarios that we see in violence throughout the city, and how do we prevent that from becoming a cycle. So we have multiple federal and state grants. One is for our Youth Services Advocacy Project. We have the Supporting Male Survivors of Violence grant, which works in East Baltimore. So those are really looking at what mental health interventions can we bring to bear? Are there alternative therapies? Are there other support services for victims? Can we stabilize housing? Can we get them connected to employment work? So it really is a model of stabilizing the lives of those individuals and seeing what we can do to prevent that cycle. So that's really where the health department's focus and sort of this big picture of violence in the city, that's where things are headed. The money that we're still getting in general funds will go toward that work, and the administrative team and everything needed to support those grants. They are pretty large, so there is a good amount of support that's needed to administer those grants. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll continue with the Family League.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, Council President, members of the committee. My name is Damal Millard. I'm representing the Family League of Baltimore as the President and CEO. I would like to recognize members of my team who are here today. Mr. Jonathan Carter, Director of Strategic Operations, Matt Quinlan, and Shamoya Gardner, our legislative liaisons. So as we're starting basically with the pre and postnatal support, in which you've heard from the very thorough presentation that was provided by our colleague from the Health Department, one of the key areas is a part of our partnership with the Health Department as well as Healthcare Access Maryland, where it was made possible by the Mayor and City Council support that funded paraprofessional home visiting, which offers pre and postnatal services to families that have been identified as high risk for poor birth outcomes. This investment essentially goes to 5 home visiting providers that provide support citywide in aiding pregnant and postpartum women to achieve the most optimal physical, social, and emotional early learning development support for their children. In FY19, 550 families were served in mitigating the effects of disproportionately high rates of adverse childhood experiences and trauma. That also included issues with housing instability, which was a key contributing factor that also inhibits early childhood development and growth. As a partner with the Health Department and the Be More for Healthy Babies initiative, we will continue our efforts in aiding these providers to maintain accreditation with the Healthy Family America's model, an evidence-based model for home visiting, as we work to ensure that all babies are born healthy, at a healthy weight, and ready to thrive. Thank you. One of the key things I think as it relates to that was the key, areas where we did not have data that was provided as non-applicable for the actual FY17, and that was mainly because we have not received the data from the Maryland Department of Health Vital Statistics, in which we have to do the assessment for the calendar year of 2016. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware. So as we transition into the education and youth and engagement priority outcome, Family League is still poised to continue our role in supporting the implementing of the community school strategy for our 49 community schools, serving 25,000 students. The strategy is made possible by your investment with the support of Mayor Pugh, city schools, as well as the Governor's Office of Children. At its core, the approach aims to ensure that all students are, regardless of zip code, are provided with high-quality enrichment opportunities in order to well complement their educational journey toward academic success. Through your support, Family Leagues partners with lead agencies where each community school leverages unique resources to meet the students' needs with a holistic focus on them as well as their family members. Your investment sponsors a team of full-time dedicated resource navigators, also known as community school coordinators, at each of these 49 schools. And their job is to coordinate resources, build partnerships that transform a school into a hub of integrated service delivery. It is our commitment to continue to strive towards an authentic relationship with the community. I think a number of you had participated with our community listening sessions. I think, Mr. Chairman, you did, as well as Councilwoman Middleton. We included copies of that report within your packets. We also included copies of investment maps within each of your legislative districts that show not only in terms of for local investments and supports, but also with our support from the Governor's Office of Children and federal agencies as well. So with that being said, we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We've also been joined by Council President Bernard C. Jack Young, Councilwoman Sharon Green Middleton, Vice President of the Council and member of the committee from the 6th District, Councilman John Bullock from the 9th District. Go ahead, please continue. Did I get everyone?
Thank you. So our next agency is Human Services. We still have a laundry list.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Mr. President, members of the council. So Human Services, most of our related agencies, you'll hear from us again soon about homelessness, but we have a lot to do with youth spread throughout. For the purposes of this, we'll focus on two things, one smaller, and then I'll have our other team member come up. We have with us today Shannon Burrows Campbell, our Executive Director of Head Start, Holly Gonzalez and Keenan Jeter from our youth team, and Amir Asadi, our Finance Chief. Thank you all for being here. Mayor's Office of Human Services was asked in FY18 to administer $2.58 million in general funds. We used those funds through a public process using community reviewers to support 61 school year and summer youth programs serving more than 1,500 youth in Baltimore City. Again, developed a community review process, worked closely with Family League. Essentially, all of the money that came into Human Services was either funded out or funded back to Family League for community schools in OSD. So I've got a handout I can give you later that breaks out exactly how much that money was spent, and I'll wait for questions later. But if we can go to the Head Start slide, the bigger investment under this service is our Head Start program. So I'm going to ask Shannon to come up and just give you a quick summary of Head Start for this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Mayor's Office of Human Services Head Start program. This service provides comprehensive Head Start services to low-income 3-year-old and 4-year-old children throughout 44 classrooms at 10 sites. We serve approximately 759 children throughout our program, but in collaboration with 3 other grantees citywide, there's about 2,830 children that are served in Head Start every single year. So a couple highlights is that Baltimore City Head Start has not had a performance audit by the city this past year and did not have any findings. And subsequently, we also had 4 federal reviews in the last 2 years and didn't have any findings as well, which allows us to receive a non-competitive 5-year grant starting in fiscal year 20 for Head Start services to continue. There's 2 providers in the city that are going to be non-competitive and 2 that are competitive. With the federal funding that we receive, the bulk of the work supports the classrooms and the staff and ensuring that we're providing services to children, but also significant services to families that need the wraparound support that we provide. General funds great supports a mentor coaching program, an initiative that at one point in time was an innovation project, but now is recognized by the Office of Head Start and is also in the regulations for programs to be able to provide to their teachers and assistant teachers, with the goal of increasing the quality of their interactions with the children, because that has a direct impact on their school readiness. The general funds support mentor coaches as well as staff from the University of Maryland School of Social Work to target these individualized interventions in each classroom to meet the children. And then next year, this will also support family services staff in achieving a specific credential and a certification that's now required by the performance standards and the regulations for staff to really have intensive case management services for families enrolled that are outcome-based. Thank you.
We will now transition to the Mayor's Office of Employment Development.
Good afternoon, members of the council. Good to see you again. I'm Jason Perkins-Cohen. I'm the director of the Mayor's Office of Employment Development. With me today, in the order in which you guys are seated, I have David Hagans, who's our budget director, Terry Parker, who is our CFO, Ernest Dorsey, who is the assistant director who oversees all of our youth services, and Patty Morphy, who oversees our data and performance. I got your message. I have 4 slides. I'll roll through them very quickly. The first is service number 791, which is our alternative school that we receive funding from the Baltimore City Public School System. It is for overage and undercredited young adults. It's very important, and you can see the outcomes before you. The second service number is 797. That is with city funds. It funds our youth opportunity centers, sometimes referred to as YO centers. As you know, we have one on the west side, which we run ourselves. We have one on the east side that we contract out with HEBCAC to run. The outcomes you see before you encompass both centers. Critical services for opportunity youth up to the age of 24. Next, we have service number 798, which is YouthWorks, which is our summer jobs program that you all know very well. It serves young adults from the ages between 14 and 21. They have a 5-week job in the summer. Very busy time for YouthWorks, as you know. I'm sure we'll talk about that soon. And last is service number 800, which is our youth-funded services for which we receive federal funds that are passed through the state. WIOA is the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. Yesterday we talked about the funds we receive to provide services to the adults. This is the services we provide for the youth. The feds split those funds for the state, and the requirements are somewhat different, but it's always about training and employment. We contract out the great bulk of these services to area nonprofits to provide training and placement. And thank you very much for your time. I look forward to talking to you.
Okay, we will now transition to library.
And thank you, Jason. Always a model in brevity. I appreciate it.
Good afternoon, members of the council. I'm Heidi Daniel, CEO of Enoch Pratt Free Library. With me today, I have Stan Ostromsky, who is our CFO, and Megan McCorkle, who is our Director of Marketing and Communications. For today, I will be focusing on our services, major budget items to note as they relate to services to youth. Obviously, Enoch Pratt services members of the entire city of Baltimore, but for youth services today, we would like to focus on major budget items for next year. It'll be our first full year of our 30% expansion of hours. So that has resulted in us being able to offer 290.5 more hours per week throughout the city, particularly at our Pennsylvania Avenue and Southeast Anchor branches. Also, this year's budget will support the full reopening of our central library, which we expect to have happening in the spring of 2019. That will be the completion of a 2.5-year renovation project. Especially to note is the fact that our teen wing will now be a 10,500 square foot area that will have 2 classrooms, a multimedia lab, including an audio and a visual recording studio, as well as a technology maker space. Our measures here are around our school readiness and our summer reading. In school readiness, you might note that there was a decrease from FY16 to FY17 of about 4%, which mitigated somewhat the actual gain of 6% from FY16, which broke a pattern of increasing program participation. But FY17 was in line with that year's anticipated target, as is FY18. And we did note that our numbers would be, even though it's an increase, would be a little lower because of our central library being under renovation. And for summer reading this year, we are using for the first time an online software, which will help with registration. In FY15, our program was redesigned to focus resources on increasing the percentage of children who completed the program as opposed to registered. So that means we're actually recording the number of children who read at least 15 minutes per day for the 8-week total. And that is the effective measure for responding to the summer slide, improving reading fluency and confidence. We also made a change in registration in terms of not registering in classrooms, but registering in the community and in the libraries instead. So that changed, was in line with our effectiveness measurement. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Daniel.
Okay. Next up is Rec and Park. No? Okay.
No.
Let's see.
Oh,
Human
no.
Services?
Who's supposed to be here from Rec and Park? That's
No.
not good.
Okay. That's it for all of our
Who's
presenters.
supposed to be here from Rec and Park?
I will have to double check on that. I'll follow
Okay.
up.
Which service are we dealing with there?
For Rec and Park?
Yep. Aquatics?
Yep. Park maintenance,
Daryl. Where's Daryl?
self-sports. Park maintenance. Community rec centers.
Community Rec Center. Who's that? Rashawn?
Special facilities.
Come on, guys. We had the schedule out
Yeah.
like a month in advance. Who's supposed to be here? Anyone? Is this an echo chamber? Someone?
We'll follow up with them.
I'd like an answer now. I mean, we had the schedule out a month in advance, guys.
They were here earlier in the week.
It's not your fault.
Okay.
I think you're fantastic, Caroline. Stop economizing.
So that's it for presenters. If you're
Okay, we're gonna pause now. Okay, thank you. All right. Colleagues, first I'm going to ask that we only ask questions for city schools because I know Allison and some of her team need to get out of here. So if we can front load those questions related to Baltimore City Public Schools only, let's please do that first. So I know we have a couple people on the list, so I'm just going to read through them. If you don't have a question for city schools, I would greatly appreciate if you would cede to the next person. Mr. President, Councilman Pinkett, Councilman Cohen. Is this that's a Burnett?
Maybe. I had a question about school-based health centers, but I don't know if that's HCD or BCPS. Okay, I'll hold off. Thank you.
You're good. Councilman Stokes?
Question?
Yeah, for schools?
Yes.
Yep.
I had emailed your CEO about a year ago about having our young people to about careers. Those are ones that's not going to college, but had opportunity to go to one of the two schools, Mervo and Carver, and I asked for the infrastructure about a year ago. I haven't gotten it, but my question is, we need to have a conversation to talk about how do we open that school up in the evenings, on the weekends, during the summer, to give our young people an opportunity to have a career, and to those persons that live in the community that might have a career change. So can I get the infrastructure costs on that, Mervo and Carver, the staff, and how we can talk about having that facility open during the weekends, the summer, and the evenings? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll follow up.
Do you have a question for City? You're good. We've been joined by Councilman Henry, 4th District member of the committee. Council members Henry and Bullock, do you guys, any questions specifically for city schools? You're good? All right, Councilman Stokes, you're good? Nothing for city schools. Pinkett, Young, you're good? Schleifer, city schools? Everyone's good with city schools here? City schools, you guys are excused. Thank you very much. Have a nice afternoon.
Thank you.
Mr. President, and then we're going to go on to any other agency. We've also been joined by Councilman Ryan Dorsey, 3rd District.
Thank you.
And Kara Kuntz in the back, who's Legislative Director for Council President Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is for the library.
Yes.
The table for funded positions, this is on page 85, line 00672, shows that the number of library security officers have doubled. There will now be 24, up from 12 at a cost of $962,290, up from $481,145. Can you explain why the amount?
Yes, we can. Along with our expansion of hours, our 5-year grant from the state with some matching funding from the city that allowed us to expand our hours by 30%. We also included expanding our security staff so that each library would have a security staff member available at all times during the day. So previously, not every branch had a security staff member, but this allows since most of our branches are now have expanded evening hours as well as open 6 days a week, and Central is open 7 days a week, and expanded evening hours as well. This allowed us to place security officers in each of our branches for the safety of our customers and staff.
Okay, I understand that. So when the grant funding is over, what happens?
So we have a 5-year commitment, and we are hoping that we will be able to show great success with our expansion of hours in terms of our usage being significantly up, and we will be able to continue that funding, would be our hope. But I don't have the answer for that at this point in time. This is our first full year, so.
Okay. The same page, there are cuts to facility management, the Maryland Department, and African American departments. Can you explain the reason for these cuts?
There were cuts to those departments. Yeah. Stan, can I ask for you to answer those questions?
Yes, you gotta come to the mic.
Good afternoon. As best I know, they were not cuts, they were reclassifications.
Sir, you got, please speak into the mic just because you're being recorded. It's on TV. You can move that around, whatever's comfortable.
I'm sorry, is that better?
That's perfect.
As I understand, those were mostly reclassifications to other pay codes. There were no direct cuts in the facilities department.
Okay, so if they were reclassified, it should have reflected in this book, in the budget book.
Yes, so you will see a plus, for example, as Ms. Daniel presented in the security department, and maybe a -1 in the facility department, but that's a reclassification of position. Okay. Those aren't direct cuts right out of facilities.
Okay, well, would you get those reclassified position and send it to the chair of the committee?
I sure can.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good, brother.
You said two.
Said two. Councilman Pinkett.
Yes, thank you. I had 2 questions. My first is for, I guess, the Office of Human Services related to Head Start. And I'm quite sure that there's a logical answer for this, but I'm just curious. So when we look at Head Start, and it says for the page 199 in Volume 2 under Service 605. It says number of children receiving Head Start services is one of the measures, and then it also says cost per child. So in FY14, the actual was 3,603 children receiving Head Start services, but from that point forward, the highest total is 759.
Yes.
I mean, that's a tremendous drop. And then when you look at the cost per child, it looks like in FY14 we had $25 million, and now we only have $7 million committed to Head Start. Like I said, I'm quite sure there's a reason, because I don't know the history related to that expenditure. Can you tell me what happened? Because we were servicing, unless somebody else is servicing these children.
So I'll give you the history of why there is such a drastic change in the budget book. Back in 2007, the regulations have changed. The Head Start Act changed and indicated that programs that had federal reviews and were deemed deficient would have to recompete for their funding openly. Back in 2010, early 2010, this program had a federal review. They were a very large program at the time. They had 3,603 children. They had 17 delegate agencies, 250 classrooms. They were found deficient in fiscal internal controls, which triggered then the requirement to openly recompete for funding. So the city made the decision at the time, through an exhaustive effort of exploring all the options, to, rather than compete with providers that are currently in the delegate agency pool, but to come together as collaborative partners and compete together with each other in a very structured way with set MOUs and set requirements for each partner to provide early Head Start and Head Start services. And in doing so, the city became a partner with 4 other providers that all received our own grants through that competitive process. So while the city's actual grant is now in the amount of about $8 million, or $7.5 million, where it used to be $31 million. That same amount of money is coming into the city, the $31 million, but now 5 providers share that and provide the services. So the city provides services, Catholic Charities provides services, St. Vincent de Paul, the Y, and Maryland Family Network with all their own grants, but we do so in collaboration. That's for 5 years. That 5-year period ends at the end of 2019. As I had shared in my opening statement, because of our successful history in the last couple years with cleaning up the program and receiving no issues with our federal reviews, our program doesn't have to recompete for funding for the next 5 years starting in fiscal year 20. So, but 2 of the programs in our partnership do. They have to, because they had some deficiencies that were identified during this 5-year period. So the money will never change. The amount of money will always come to provide that amount of services. The providers might change if those providers aren't successful in their bid for recompetition. We are really hopeful they are, because stable services with stable staff and stable centers and communities, it really does have an impact on our ability to provide good services.
So I guess I have 2 questions. One, how do we measure, or how, even as this body, have the assurance that we're still, because if we just look at the budget book, we don't see those other, 3,000 children who are receiving services. How do we get the assurance that those services are still being provided to children throughout the city? But then I guess my second question related to that would be, being that 2 of them were found deficient, and I don't know what the issues were, should we as a city be going after those 2 allocations so that we make certain that those dollars are secured for children?
It's a great question. Both of your questions are really great. So as partners, we have all signed agreements and MOUs where we share data on a quarterly and yearly basis. The city actually manages the database for all those partners. So we have access to the data, we run the reports, we look at the reports, we make sure that children are being served and families are being served. and we share that. The collaborative has recently decided that we're going to start producing an impact report that shows what everybody is doing together so that there can be those types of assurances publicly rather than us just in a vacuum reviewing this information. There's also reports to Congress that are made once a year called the Program Information Report, and those are easily downloadable that you can see how they're providing services, how many staff they're employing, and those types of things. And we analyze that on a yearly basis to make sure that that's occurring.
So is the fact that those two organizations were found deficient, is that on the city, or do we provide some oversight so that?
We don't provide oversight, but we are impacted in that way because we want to make sure that we're all still working together, right? Yeah. And we want to make sure services are consistent. Exactly. So we're concerned about that. We're concerned about, the competition, but we also have confidence that the deficiencies that they experienced were a one-off, that they were a staff issue, that they were corrected, okay, that they are now in good standing, that they are great providers and they provide a good service, and that through a competitive process, hopefully the Office of Head Start will see their redeeming qualities and will select them again.
Okay, thank you.
The money will never be lost. Then the money will still be around to be able to tap into if they weren't selected for some reason.
Thank you. And if I can make a note, we'd like to get a report on the status of the 5 programs collective so that we know that the young people are getting the services that they need.
Absolutely. Would like to do that.
Good afternoon. When this first happened, I was one of the ones that said, no, we need to fight it because one other city fought it and were able to get it all back. Why didn't we do that? Because I want us to get all 5 of them back.
I completely understand, and I think that our experience in the last several years of correcting all of those issues, we could really stand on our own now. We really are able to do this and do this in a way that's delivers a quality of service. The agencies that we were competing against, it's hard to compete against agencies that are coming in new or that have a backbone or that have additional funding that support the program. Our program is the federal dollars and the money that you give us for the general funds. It's a very small portion, and we try to do that on a shoestring budget and develop the quality of the program in that capacity, whereas those other providers have so much other backing for those services. That does make a difference.
Okay, of those 5 agencies that is getting money for Head Start, yep, we want to see the metrics from all 5. Okay. Since we give them money to find out how effective they are and whether it's working.
Great.
Okay,
I'd be more than happy to provide that.
Thank you. My second question is for the Mayor's Office of Employment Development. It's in reference to Service 798, Workforce Services for Out-of-School Youth. And so my initial question, I wanted to just be clear before I ask my real question is, who's the target for the YO Center or the YO program?
Sure, and I think you mean 797.
I'm sorry, yeah, 797, my fault.
Great. The target is for Opportunity Youth. They're neither actively enrolled in school, nor have a job. And they're under the age of 24.
And the reason I'm asking is one of the outcomes or measures is percentage of YO participants who avoid becoming involved in the juvenile adult criminal justice system while enrolled in the program, making neighborhoods safer. One, I mean, that is a tremendous statement about the state of our young people, that if you're not in this program, you might be inclined to be involved in some criminal activity. But is that the bar for success with YO, that
no,
as long as you're out of jail, good?
It's certainly not the only measure of success, but there's a lot of research around Opportunity Youth, and that they are at an extreme risk of getting engaged in the criminal activity because they're not either in school or in work. Mm-hmm. And so what we're really trying to do is make sure that they're engaged in one or the other. Okay. And if we do that, then their risk just, again, sort of nationally research-based will significantly decrease. But the one and only goal is not to keep them out of criminal activity. It's the positive part about if they don't have their GED, to make sure that they get their GED. If they have their GED or they need to get a job immediately, then we're going to go do that.
So do we have a number on the total number of youth that would fit that profile for YO? Because I mean, clearly you have limited resources, so you're only able to reach less than 1,000.
I don't want to. I don't want to just pop off. I think I know the percentage because there's actually a report about Baltimore, and it has unfortunately one of the higher percentages of opportunity youth as a percentage of all youth who in that category. But let us, if you wouldn't mind,
Okay,
I prefer to give it to you.
So if you can get us the information on the total number of opportunity youth, so that we know what percentage of those youth we're reaching. Because if you're able to keep 98, 99%, out of the criminal justice system, then we need to be identifying more resources to reach those other youth.
I completely agree, and I can tell you for certain that 950 is a really small, unfortunately small percentage of the number of opportunity youth in our city.
Thank you, sir.
Before we go any further, we have Rec and Parks here. Director Moore, thank you for coming. I'm not sure why there was a snafu, but we're good now because you're here. Appreciate you being here. Can we get to the slides for Rec and Parks? And have Director Moore or whoever from your staff is appropriate. I know we have Daryl Sutton from Aquatics. If there's anyone else from your team that you'd like to introduce, Director, please and thank you.
Yes. I have Sierra Harris here as my Chief of Staff. Daryl is here, Daryl Sutton. And I want to start by apologizing. We opened up today, for those who don't know, we opened up the Lakeland STEAM Community Center. So we was running from there. So I do apologize that we wasn't here as well.
We're good, and we appreciate what you're doing down in Lakeland. And we just want to make sure that we get everyone in here to have an opportunity to talk about the budget requests, and so council members have an opportunity to ask you questions as part of the process. So we appreciate you being here, Director.
Yes, sir. Aquatics.
Okay.
As stated on the slide, of course, our aquatics we have 6 large swimming pools, 13 what we call walk-to park pools, and then we have 3 indoor pools, and then we have 2 splash pads, which are located at North Hartford and Solo Gibbs. To help support that budget there, we're taking $900,000 from our table game revenue to support it, to increase that recommended budget this year to $3.3 million. Our swimming pools are scheduled to be on time to open June 23rd. We have some of our larger park pools that are open now. Druid Hill is open. Unfortunately, this past weekend we had some mechanical problems that we didn't foresee at Patterson, but we plan to have Patterson. We're confident that we have that one ready to go, and it will be definitely operating by next weekend. Riverside is the one that we're having to work a little bit more because of some water problems there. And what we're going to do to support our pools, we are going to go ahead and open up Cherry Hill, the Rebirth Park pool, to open this weekend. Park maintenance, of course, that's one of our largest divisions, responsible for maintaining our various parks. We have over 276 sites there. To help support our general fund, we do receive funding from POS. $2 million of that is used for what we call operational expense to help us with additional staffing. One of the things we're looking at this year, we're going to start a satellite program this year. We have ordered a load packer, and we're going to have a sanitation or solid waste crew that we're going to bring in this year under some of this POS funding to support some of our parks and rec centers to kind of help in the times where DPW picks up once a week. Some of our sites that have high traffic and population, including weekends, we're going to also dump as well. And I think you all may remember at one point in time, Rec and Park used to actually have its own solid waste crew in-house. So we're going to try that on a temporary basis. Our youth and adult sports, of course, is responsible for all of our youth sports programming, from youth sports as well as adults throughout the city. That recommended budget is $868,000 for this year. Our target you'll see a slight increase in our target for participants, because one of the things we're doing is we're going to move forward and offer youth football. We're going to bring rec youth football back in-house, and our goal is that we're trying to have teams at every rec center. We may not get full commitment, but we are bringing that program back in-house so that we can offer a program. One of the things we're pushing is coach education. One of the challenges in youth sports sometimes is our coaches are not properly equipped to coach our younger kids the way they should be. And if you continue to look at trends today, by the age of 13, over 14% of our youth are losing interest in youth sports. And some of that is attributing to maybe some of the abuse of things that they're experiencing at a young age. So we're making sure that we educate our coaches and we do a better job of trying to bring the right coaches to fit what the kids we're trying to reach. Community rec centers. Community rec centers is our largest division. We currently operate 43 rec centers there. There was a slight increase this year in that budget for two reasons. One, there was an increase of $300,000 to help support the BOAT program, which is the program where we're offering on Friday and Saturday nights. Saturday is from 5 to midnight, and on Fridays from 9 to 11. So this additional $300,000 will help us with staffing so that we're not demanding too much on our staffing there. Special facilities is more so our enterprise fund. That's where the Mount Pleasant, Mimi DePietro, Myers Pavilion, the driving range, Upton Boxing, Carrie Murray Nature Center, of course, and the newest facility we opened up, Shake and Bake Family Fun Center. What's exciting, you will see an increase in our participation there, and most of that projection is based on what we're projecting to be an increase in the number of participants at the Shake and Bake facility. We are now working with our consultants to finish phase 2, as we stated earlier, which is the bowling facility, which will be in the lower section. So our goal is to have that facility up and ready by March of next year. Therapeutic Recs is the division that deals with our youth and adults with special needs. That's an extremely important division. They're operated out of our Fair and Baybrook location. It is in that location down in Fair and Baybrook where our program is housed. But one of the things we're doing this summer, in the past what we did was we had our summer camp at one central location, but some of the complaints from the parents were it was kind of difficult for them to get their kids there. So what we're doing is we're bringing inclusion assistance into our summer camps at our different locations. So wherever the need is, there's a registration or increase in participants with special needs, then we'll have inclusion assistance, which will make it much more convenient for parents versus them having to go to that one central location. Urban forestry, this division, of course, is responsible for maintaining as well as the planting of our trees throughout the city. We saw a 1% increase in our tree canopy.
Skip this one.
Okay.
Good.
Why
are we?
You want park programming?
Hang on one second. We're done. We're done. We're good.
Okay.
Yeah, we were just focusing on youth. Yeah.
Okay.
I was going crazy, but I'm pretty sure we did rec and parks already. Okay. We're good. Thank you, Director. Bob Wall, thank you for being here. I got a question for Health Department. I'm going to talk about maternal and child health. Infant mortality falls in that. Thank you. We have we have some successful programs in the city like Be More for Healthy Babies. Are they receiving, or other programs similar to that receiving, a city appropriation?
Yes.
How does that work? Like, can you walk me through Be More for Healthy Babies, how that's funded?
Certainly. So Be More for Healthy Babies is funded through a diverse set of funding sources, and there is certainly city appropriation that is a part of that. So of the general fund budget that you see here, of the $1.9 million, we consider all of the $1.9 million in general funds part of being a contributor to Be More for Healthy Babies. The health department leads Be More for Healthy Babies, and we partner with a number of different organizations, about 150 different organizations, Family League being a main implementation partner, as well as Healthcare Access Maryland. The way that we look at the budget for BHB, or Be More for Healthy Babies, is that we take into account the funds that the health department receives for its core maternal and child health services, and also all of the budgets that our different partners through our different coalitions receive as well. So in total, Be More for Healthy Babies gets about $29 million in funding. We get the 1.9 in city general funds, but we also have a number of state funds that we receive and federal funds, and a fair number of grants as well.
Thank you. You're welcome. If the city, so in Upton, right, in Upton, Druid Heights,
yes,
we went from a high rate of infant mortality to, I believe, zero deaths in the last 4 years.
0 deaths in the last 4 years, yes. So proud to say that.
We have Be More for Healthy Babies operating in other neighborhoods in the city that have a similar similar set of demographics as Upton, Druid Heights, specifically economic demographics?
Yes, we do. So the way that we planned Be More for Healthy Babies back in 2009 when we were writing the initial strategy is that we looked at the neighborhoods with the highest numbers of excess infant deaths. Of course, any death is too many, but we looked at 12 distinct neighborhoods with the highest infant mortality rates. And Upton, Druid Heights, and Patterson Park North and East were the two communities that were selected to be communities where we had special emphasis, or certain community hubs or lead organizations. The University of Maryland School of Social Work being the one in Upton, Druid Heights, and also the Drew Mondawmin Healthy Families program for home visiting in Upton, Druid Heights. But yes, there are other neighborhoods, and we have actually just released, or are about to release, a refreshed Be More for Healthy Babies strategy, where we have re-examined the infant mortality rates and the demographics for other neighborhoods as well. And we know that we can't just stay targeting Upton, Druid Heights, and Patterson Park North and East. We want to expand into other neighborhoods with the same concentrated efforts that we've had in those two. However, Be More for Healthy Babies has always been citywide in terms of having home visiting services in every single neighborhood, and also running our communications campaigns regarding safe sleep, which is one of our main causes of infant death, citywide as well. But the answer to your question is yes, we do plan to put more concentrated services into more neighborhoods like Upton, Druid Heights. Yes.
Forgive me if I'm confused. You mentioned 12 neighborhoods throughout the city, and obviously it's operating in 2 in Upton, Druid Heights, as well as Patterson Park / Patterson Park North. What do we need to do to get Be More for Healthy Babies in other neighborhoods that are experiencing infant mortality rates similar to what those 2 neighborhoods were experiencing a number of years ago before the program came?
We would need to raise considerable more funding to expand into other neighborhoods with the same targeted approach that we've been able to offer in Upton, Druid Heights, and in Patterson Park North and East. I believe we're at the point with our refreshed strategy where we are examining our budgets and trying to figure out the exact budget marks that we would need to successfully expand. And I could get back to you with particulars on what that would look like. But I do know that we have re-examined all of our different high impact areas that we're looking at. There were 11 high impact areas in the initial strategy. There's home visiting, mental health, safe sleep. I won't go through all 11. We've condensed them into 6 now based on what
6 neighborhoods or 6 areas?
6 areas.
Okay.
So those are.
Can you provide to the committee in writing those 6 areas as well as those 11 or 12 neighborhoods?
Absolutely.
That list, and if you have any quantitative scores associated with each of those neighborhoods, something that lends to how they were prioritized. I'm certainly not complaining, as Upton and Druid Heights is in my district, but I'd just like to better understand what the priority is for the remaining ones so that we can start to get a bite of that apple. Mr. President, Marguerite, you got that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to know what's the difference between your organization and Healthy Start, and how do you all coordinate service? Because they do almost the same thing that you guys did.
Yes.
And I was one of the ones that thought that Healthy Start should have kept the program because it seemed like it's a duplication with both programs.
That's a wonderful question. We actually partner quite a bit with Baltimore Healthy Start. They are one of our best partners, and the thing that makes Healthy Start unique is that they have a considerable amount of history in the city, over 30 years of experience. We also started our home visiting program, maternal and infant care, at about the same time, and we also used to be part of Healthy Start. Over the years, funding situations changed, but Healthy Start has remained its own distinct organization. And we have always, when we started Be More for Healthy Babies, we respected the history that Healthy Start has and all of the wonderful work that they have done. And so when they received their federal funding, we knew that we did not want to touch that or mess with that or hamper that coming to them in any way. We've actually augmented their budget by giving them additional funding to operate one of the Healthy Families America sites. So in addition to the services the Healthy Start offers, which are in distinct neighborhoods, Sandtown, Winchester, East Baltimore as well. They offer those based on geographic regions, based on their federal grant, and they operate their model of home visiting and center-based services. But we have given them funding to operate additional home visiting services through the Healthy Families model that Damon mentioned that Family League oversees. So Healthy Start is still very much alive and well. Healthy Start actually is our biggest provider of home visiting services. So they provide services to 800 to close to 1,000 families per year, and there are actually only about 2,000 slots for home visiting in the city. And honestly, we really should have more slots for home visiting services because we receive about 5,000 referrals a year for home visiting. So does that answer your question?
That answered my question. I just didn't want the council chair, the chair of the budget committee, to think that Be More Babies is the only one that was doing that. Because as a former board member of Healthy Start, they did great work, and I couldn't understand why another entity was, developed, because they was doing everything that they're supposed to do. And the health department tried to shut them down so many times, and I don't know why. They cut their budget, kept cutting their budget. And when the federal government cut their budget, thanks to Congressman Elijah Cummings, Senator McFadden and I went to him, and funding was restored. So I don't want people to think that Be More Babies is the only thing out there, because Healthy Start have a long history of dealing with young women throughout their pregnancy. So I just wanted the chair of the budget committee to know that.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Absolutely respect
Thank
that.
you. Councilman Cohen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This one's actually going to be for you, Jason. So this morning, myself and Councilman Bullock were at a school in Southwest Baltimore, Southwest Charter. Whole bunch of young people presenting on the impact of lead paint and pointing out to us, from what I was able to ascertain, that we're spending very little money on abatement. We're spending, according to the young people, a lot of money on our police department and on prosecuting, going after crime after it has occurred, but not that much on really preventing it. I say all that to say, I asked one of the young people after the presentations, what should we be investing in? And interestingly, for all the folks here, what he lifted up was more investment in early childhood education, specifically pre-K, more investment in community schools, more investment in mental health services, more investment in youth jobs. Much of what has been covered today, this was a sixth grader who thought that if we invested more of our budget into that, we would have less crime on the back end and we'd be spending less policing it. This was, again, a 12-year-old. Jason, what is the gap on YouthWorks jobs this summer?
Well, first of all, obviously as the employment guy, I certainly will always suggest that or support more investment in workforce. And in terms of YouthWorks or summer employment, you all are aware, and I'm happy to provide the research that shows a correlation between increased investment in summer employment programs and decreases in criminal activity. So I think that
Jason, can you say what that's based on? Is that just anecdotal, or is that there's actual evidence?
That's actual evidence done by the Brookings Institution. There's 2 studies, one in Boston and one in Chicago. Obviously, we're not Boston or Chicago, but the summer youth employment programs function more or less the same, right? I mean, there's summer jobs programs for teenagers. And what they found was the overwhelming evidence was that young people who were offered employment through these summer jobs programs, just like we offer, their engagement in criminal activity was significantly less. They were much less likely to engage or have a criminal record following that summer or during that summer than young people, a comparison group who are not offered a summer job. So the 12-year-old is came up with something that I'm sure a lot of money was spent through the Brookings Institution to find out. In answer to your question, we currently have raised something just over $10 million for our summer jobs program this year. Obviously, the city makes a significant contribution to that. At this moment, that would provide approximately 8,000 jobs for young people this summer. You are likely aware that we've had a dramatic increase in the number of young people who want a summer job. That is a terrific thing. No one is required to participate in YouthWorks. Young people and their families have to go through a series of steps to be part of this, and that number is, again, 11,500. It's the most we've ever had in our city, and something that, quite honestly, we should, as a city, be proud about. Obviously, the math then tells you that 3,500 is the gap, and I don't have it in front of me, but it's $1,600 a job. So if I pull out my calculator and I do 1,600 times 3,500, that would be the gap. Now, I want to be clear: it's not only about money, right? There also has to be the jobs there, and we as a city have grown really rapidly. The council has been very supportive. I know each council member actually participates in YouthWorks. So we've grown from just 3 years ago, we were at 5,000 jobs. And the last 3 years, we've been able to get into the 8,000 mark. Getting to 11,500 that quickly, I want to tell you, we as a city could do, but it's a lot to ask. It's a lot of jobs. I do know that we could be higher than where we are now if we had more resources, but I don't want to. If there was an angel investor who dropped on us the number that I gave you before on June 1st, it would be pretty tough to find those jobs in 24 days.
So about 3,500 kids that applied for jobs, and these are teenagers, right? I mean, we're talking the ages 14 to...
They can go up to 21, so...
Right, so exactly the target demographic of children that we know are both disproportionately perpetrators and victims of violent crime, 14 to 21. So there's 3,500 of them that want a job and won't have one this summer.
As of me talking to you now, that is where we are.
Okay, and we have unfilled positions in our police department. About how much, Jason, financially? You said a couple million to close that gap?
I'm told that the math I gave you that has been worked out behind me is roughly $5.5 million would be the gap. I would say that in terms of maybe a more realistic number and what we could do is more in the likes of 1,000 jobs, and that math is $1.6 million, because I think we could very quickly ramp up to 9,000 jobs. We have, the team has worked really hard, and we're really fortunate to have a lot of support in the business community, in the nonprofit community, who are busy working to create jobs. So I do think we could get to 9,000 or a bit over that in terms of jobs offered if the resources were there.
Yeah, so just so we're all clear, coming off of our most violent year on record, we have 3,500 kids that want jobs and currently will not be provided one this summer. To me, that's frightening.
You know, I agree with you. Obviously, nobody wants, or no organization works harder or wants more to make sure that every young person who completed the Youth Works process gets a job. I can't say enough about how hard the team works to develop those jobs and to raise the money. I mean, not all of the money is publicly supported. We literally are beating the streets trying to raise money. I was on a program last night. I met with 2 employers yesterday. I don't want to minimize the significance, though, of 8,000 young people who will go to work by talking about the numbers that won't go to work. So somehow we have to have that balance, because it was just 3 years ago when we were talking about 5,000. And when you increase by 60% that quickly, that is a major lift. And I'm grateful for all the support that we get, both from the city council and the city, but also the business community, the philanthropic support, and community groups. And all the council is involved with the various community groups, and they open up job opportunities and work with our young people. We can't do it without them.
We really appreciate what you're doing on that front, Jason, and that is a significant increase in capacity that you've realized under your leadership, and we just hope that we can continue to be supportive so that you can continue to increase that, realizing it's not going to happen overnight, but we just need to stay focused on increasing that capacity year after year. Councilman Cohen, I'm sorry.
No, that was it. Just we got to get there for all of our kids.
I'm with you. I can answer Councilman Pinkett's question, if it's okay. 1 in 5 Baltimore young people between the ages of 16 and 24 are, according to research from 2016, 1 in 5 Baltimore youth under the age of 24, over the age of 16, are considered an opportunity youth. So they are not engaged in school or a job. That represents about 18,000 young people.
Councilman Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First question was related to school-based health centers. Thank you. So the first question was around, on your slideshow, they looked like there was a pretty significant increase in health visits to the health suites.
Yes.
What would you attribute to that increase?
To the health visits?
Mm-hmm. It was about 20,000, it looked like, from what I could tell, or 10,000, over 10,000.
So those, including those health visits, are skilled visits for children with significant chronic illnesses. So what we find is that since we have full-time staff in school, children who were normally on home teaching with asthma or who required frequent blood sugar checks are now coming to school. So every time that child comes to the health suite, which might be 2 or 3 times a day, then that counts as a health suite visit. So we're serving more children with chronic illnesses and providing more skilled visits to children.
Okay. That's a good thing. I was just curious.
Yeah,
I was like, is this marketing? Is this more suites? What's going on here? That's always a good thing. And how many schools, does every school have a health suite with a registered nurse?
Yes, every school has a health suite. Our model is every school has a certified nursing assistant, and a nurse will serve 3 schools. So the nurse will be in the school either 1, 2, or 3 days a week, but the certified nursing assistant is there every day. A few schools have a nurse every day.
And is there additional assistance? One of the things that we know, our young people do suffer from a lot of trauma, and a lot of that carries over into the school. Mm-hmm. Is that sort of care offered at these health suites or at some of the health suites or partnerships? What does that look like for kids that may be experiencing some more mental health challenges?
So one of the things that we've done is made sure that every one of our staff were trained in trauma-informed care, so that we take care of that. But additionally, the school system has an expanded school mental health program that provides mental health services in a majority of the schools. In the schools that have school-based health centers, we have a referral relationship so that and in all the schools, if a child comes in and we see that they're experiencing trauma beyond what we can provide help for in the health suite, then they are referred to the on-site mental health provider.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the clarity.
Sure.
Not really sure who to ask the second question to, but I mean, this entire panel is a number of organizations that do provide youth services. Is there a task force or some sort of coordinated effort that all of you serve on to have a more of a coordinated response or ensure that there aren't duplication of efforts or a lack of sort of dispersion of resources? Is there anything that exists in that way to sort of pull you guys together beyond these budget hearings?
One of the things that the health department is interested in, along with the school system, is addressing chronic absenteeism. So we have a task force that meets in the evening that is composed of the health department, city schools, medical providers in the community, individuals from other youth-serving organizations, specifically with the idea of what are the things that contribute to chronic absenteeism? How can we as a group figure out those things? One of the things the providers told us that they needed to fill out forms for IEPs and other things. So we brought all the people together that had the answers so that we can begin to address chronic absenteeism. We also work closely with the Family League, and I'm sure they can talk about that, on different work groups that address specific areas of concern.
Okay. I mean, it's something I'll run, I guess, by the mayor's office. I don't see anyone here, but I think, if we have this many organizations, and this isn't even including community-based organizations that are all doing great work, a recommendation I'd have is to form some sort of task force or work group to just coordinate efforts, especially with community-based groups. Because what I see is that, I mean, all great work. Thank you for all you do. Aside from this, I chair a human trafficking task force, and even with that, we've seen sort of a reduction in silos, more communication happening around this particular issue. And while it's just getting off the ground, some of the more immediate results is more service coordination. People in the room who aren't in the room are actually talking to each other to share ideas, share best practices. And it's something that I issue a challenge for that to occur, or work with the mayor's office to try and pull that together, because I mean, we know that youth-based violence is a huge issue in Baltimore, as well as trauma, as well as employment. I mean, there's a lot of needs that our young people have, and it's great that we have a number of agencies and organizations all working on these things, but I think we're at a time in the city that those efforts need to be coordinated into a central space and more collaboration, and not putting that on you to figure out, but just as a recommendation that I will, like I said, I'll work with the administration.
Sure. And there are multiple groups of that nature, and our school system partner isn't here because they could tell you they convene a lot of those groups that many of us participate.
Well, I'll just ask for more info then.
Those are just some I know of.
Okay.
So I just wanted to give you a couple quick hits. I don't think it gets to what you're talking about, but a few things we're working on now is a subgroup of VRI that would be focused, specifically data-driven, not just on crime statistics, but hopefully more empowering information as well, which leads to the big focus has been trying to find seats for everyone, not just in employment, but for summer programming. So the mayor's office, Family League, and others participate together, as does Park and Recs, MOED, in the summer planning group. We participated this year in the Summer Funding Collaborative. And then MOCJ, who's not here today, has recently pulled together a group of stakeholders surrounding the idea of juvenile justice and the supports that we're giving to young people through diversion programs and the like. So I think we're starting to build more collective impact groups, but there's nothing funneling them all up yet.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I guess my comments will be with the Family League. Damon, if you would come up to the... And I guess before I ask this question, I just think it's important for me to say that, as we went through changeover with administrations and so on, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but this is for something I think that needs to be said. Damon is a person that was born and raised in Baltimore and also was the director of community outreach, I think, with Family League, or a title somewhere near that. And as we went through the changes of a new direction for Family League under this new administration, I think it's important to say that Damon became the acting CEO through, you know, with the board and so on. And he did a personal outreach to the council president and myself, and just his passion for this organization and a strategy that he spent many long hours and nights putting together. And as you notice through some of these other agencies, they always, in a sense, mentioned partnered with Family League, and just showing how Family League plays a very important role in this city, especially for our youth and our children and summer meals. I mean, they are just within all of these youth service agencies. And Damon, the special person that he is, had so much passion for this, and it took a lot of hard work to work with the mayor and convince her the importance of this organization, and he was willing to help phase the direction of Family League to her vision and goals. So I commend you for your passion and for putting Family League in the direction that this mayor wants it to follow, and you know, adding your things like the community listening sessions, just to, we really needed that push so that communities can also see what Family League is doing. So all that to say, you know, thank you. You are on the right track. All of us know the importance of this organization, and you continue to stay on that path. I'm sure things are going to move smoothly and better for this city. All that to say, to add really, on page 83 of the, I guess the book, it has data for the percentage of parents that rate parent-family involvement at their school as favorable, which is very impressive. And it's good to see great numbers in that progress. But I'm just interested in knowing, for those that rated the involvement, you know, there were some that I guess didn't give favorable ratings. Could you just share maybe just some of those reasons why they might have rated it unfavorable?
Sure. So first of all, thank you, Councilwoman. I appreciate those kind remarks. One of the key things I think as it relates to the community school strategy and hearing from community school coordinators directly, the most difficult task that they have is parent engagement. They state that they go through a number of activities, whether it's door knocking, whether it's sending out mailers, and now trying to find even more innovative approaches in terms of utilizing social media. But in terms of one of the key benchmarks as it relates to the I would say key pillars as it relates to community schools is basically having family members engaged as a part of the school family planning council. So in certain cases, you might have in terms of where the student, you know, parent is, or the caretaker or guardian is a grandparent. Or in a case where we have a very highly transit or mobile student population, which couch surfing, and which we just discussed earlier in terms of the challenges as it relates to homeless youth and opportunity youth. And so, one, what we've seen is that there have been variations in terms of the actual numbers and feedback as it relates to those respective surveys. So,
you can bring that up a little higher.
It could be an issue in terms of the engagement of how that particular parent feels from their own past history at that school that they're still holding on to. We've heard that quite a bit. Walking into a school and it not being in a welcoming environment and not being able to see eye to eye with the principal for whatever reason if they're not from that respective area. So it does cover the gamut as it relates to those respective parent surveys.
It's good to have that feedback, and I thank you for your continued involvement with the other agencies. Your organization is definitely needed. And I know you participate and do things at the rec centers, your outreach is far outreaching, so please continue the good work, and thanks again for your service.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Councilman Slifer.
Yeah. So first question is for you, Jason. You don't need to get up. You can just stay over there. You mentioned that all the council has already participated in the Youth Works. Have all the city agencies signed up, and are they all participating?
Yep. Mayor Pugh has really emphasized the city agencies' participation, and I'm very pleased to say that every city agency participates in Youth Works, and their numbers have increased significantly from this year compared to 2 years ago prior to the Mayor Pugh.
All right, because this week of budget hearings, one of the things that we heard is that there's a lot of things that need to get done in the city. I'll give an example. Director Chow was here talking about the lawn mowing across the city and how we're short on people and getting all the grass cut. And I know when I was in middle school, high school, I was cutting grass, and I think I did a pretty good job at it as well. And so when you're looking at, you said realistically speaking, we can place another 1,000 kids in jobs. I mean, we can really kill two birds with one stone on that by getting these kids into those agencies like DPW to go ahead and give them a list of these lawns they have to mow. And that wouldn't be too costly at all. And as far as the source for those funding, one of the things we've also seen in pretty much every agency, and some of it's phantom positions, but some are actual real vacancies, that if we were to even take one vacancy per each agency and just take that salary, a basic average salary, and divide that out, I mean, each agency for one salary can hire on average 30 kids for $45,000 to $50,000 base position, if it's $1,600 per kid. And so we can get this grass cut that Director Chow said we're short $2.2 million on getting it done, and we can have these kids do it. And we can fund that with these vacant positions that are in most of the agencies.
So I'll definitely reach out to Director Chow. I do know that DPW is a significant partner in Youth Works, has been certainly since I've been with MOED, and I know well before me as well. I can speak to him about those specific jobs, and it's possible that he's already planning for that to be one of the things that young people will do, but I'll definitely reach out to him.
Thank you.
Councilman Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My first question is actually for you, Mr. Perkins Cohen. I want to talk about Service 797, which for me is known as the YO program. Can we talk about historically, so as long as I can remember, we've only had 2 YO centers, and that's still the case today. Have we presented a plan to try to expand that program, because we know it has great success, and I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about everyone else that has graduated from the program, and we know the impact that it has on the city, and in the area where we're doing VRI and other unique things to try to deal with this very population. I think that it would probably behoove us to expand the Youth Opportunity Centers, which to my knowledge, if my memory serves me correct, only would cost us about $500,000 per center.
We definitely can and have sketched out what an additional Youth Opportunity Center would be. I don't have that at my fingertips, but I can certainly make that available to the council. And we know how to do this, as you know as well as anybody. We've been running Youth Opportunity Centers for a long time, and with the appropriate resources, we could put something together quickly.
Mr. Chair or Vice Chair, can we make that as a request to see, have from the administration, have them present to us with the cost from, much like we're doing Safe Streets to grow double the size of the youth opportunity centers would be? Thank you, sir. And for my next question, I'm going to ask multiple organizations on the panel, some of which do not have to be asked because they've been asked a question already. So for Enoch Pratt Library and for Mayor's Office of Human Services and also the Family League, could the three of you tell us if you currently have someone on your staff dedicated to working towards equity?
So funny that you should bring that up, Councilman. So what we established last year was, one, a focus in terms of racial equity and inclusion as a part of our strategic vision moving forward. And with that, we have designated an equity work group, which is one, includes a membership through all of our areas within our team, administration as well as leadership. So everyone has taken kind of the responsibility to move forward in the work of equity. We also hosted a 3-day training for undoing racism with the People's Institute through Survival. Actually through a partnership with the health department. And that was definitely a transformational moment for our organization in how we utilize the equity lens within our work. Now, is there one dedicated person at this point in time? No, but we're actually looking at a joint ownership in terms of moving an equity agenda forward.
Thank you. We'll take that as a yes. I'm up to 4, Mr. Chair.
Sorry. For Enoch Pratt Library, we have not historically had one position that focused on equity, but since I came here 10 months ago, I've started working with our new HR director, and we are forming a staff committee that focuses specifically on equity and diversity within our workforce, and looking at trainings such as implicit bias training and other racial equity training as well. And we do currently have an application in, and we've made it to the second round for funding on the federal level from the Institute of Museum and Library Science to create an equity lens through which we would evaluate all of our programs and services in conjunction with the Associated Black Charities and other community partners. So that's the work that we've started in the last several months, but we do not have one dedicated person, although it is something we've discussed.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. That's great.
Thanks, Councilman, for the question. You know, Human Services is a hive of different agencies, so one of the things we're trying, but equity couldn't be more important when we're thinking about serving the most vulnerable. So back to Councilwoman Middleton's comment about it being a small world and working with Family League, we sent Holly Gonzalez, the lead on our youth team, to the training that Damon was just talking about. We've designated Holly as somebody to help think through that in the youth space. And then we are creating a position of economic sustainability and equity in our Homeless Services Department to look at how do folks getting out of homelessness become sustainable in their lives, which is a real issue of equity. So they're going to take the lead there, and then we'll have an equity work group in conjunction with a continuum of care to help us think through that. But we still have to figure out how to link all of our agencies together into a solid plan.
Thank you.
I know you didn't specifically ask for the health department, but I wanted to kind of piggyback on the answers about equity. So Be More for Healthy Babies actually has an equity work group as well, and you do know, of course, that the health department has our goal of eliminating the health disparities anyway. But Be More for Healthy Babies actually started an equity work group about 3 years ago from work that was funded by City Match, where we started this equity working group that is led by 3 of my colleagues and myself, and a few from Family League and a few from the health department. And we've actually laid out a strategy for making sure that all of our coalitions and all of the work that goes on through Be More for Healthy Babies is looked at through an equity lens. We look at our data through an equity lens. We also, one of the most important things that we're doing is trying to make sure we are more community driven and community accountable. We've started a community advisory board that we are giving as much power as we give to our core implementation team and to our steering committee, which is chaired by the mayor's office, in helping to make decisions to really try to even out the power dynamics that our large institutions like the health department and the government have had that kind of play into racism. And the trainings that Damon mentioned, the Undoing Racism trainings, we are really trying to get as many different organizations and our partners trained in that as possible. So we definitely make equity and doing our work from an anti-racist perspective one of our core values.
Thank you. We didn't ask you because Dr. Nguyen answered the question earlier today. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Henry.
It's fine.
Thank you. This is sort of dovetailing off of a question earlier by our colleague, Councilman Burnett, in terms of the coordination of all the different agencies. It feels like every couple of years I get asked by constituents, is there a one-stop shop where I can go, where I can find all of the youth activities available, either for the summer or for after school, that are provided by all the different people who provide youth services? And so my question is anyone already coordinating that? Oh, Terry and Damon are both racing for the mic, but Damon sat closer.
So I think you'll see that in terms of changes of administration, the level of coordination and who is actually the main facilitator of that work. I think to a point that Councilman Burnett had mentioned earlier, you know, with our role as a local management board, we have a number of ex officio city agencies that are all youth serving. So we're always at the same tables at different meetings, and we're always sharing some of that information. But typically you only see it in terms of the meals and food security space, with the support mainly through the mayor's office and its food policy initiative work group, in which Be More Summer was actually a place in a website where it was all held in terms of activities, meals, and everything that you wanted to find.
Just to be clear, though, what the ideal version of this would not be just government related. It would be, you know, what are the churches in this area doing? What are the colleges providing? Is there anybody who is looking at this from that macro of a perspective?
So, and Terry can come, but I don't think there is one particular entity that's pulling together all those respective data sets. Okay. Terry had mentioned earlier the Summer Funding Collaborative, in which a landscape analysis was done, really looking in terms of during the period of summer where a lot of kids experience summer learning loss. Right. And so recognizing in terms of the geographic footprints where you had voids, whether it's through private or public entities, where there were no summer activities. And then that's when you had the convening of about 10 different funders, public, philanthropic, providing support for their work, as well as the Mayor's Office of Human Services. But again, that's just specifically for summer. And so I think as we're hearing loud and clear in terms of the interest of that, you will, I'm sure, will see a level of collaboration to help support that.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect strategic lead in to what a real tactical thing I wanted to add. So everything Damon had just described, summer became more of a digestible chunk. Could we really focus on collaboration of resources around that defined time where we knew we needed a certain amount of seats? Family League used to operate, I think a lot of you remember Super Summer, the website. That had to rely on outside funding, and so Damon, I don't know how many years that was able to go for. About 2 years. So one of the greatest concerns of the summer planning group this year was, what is a resource for everybody from parents to, believe it or not, in our surveys, librarians get more questions than anybody about programs. That's where people go. So what's that resource? So working with our new BSIT, I have to get used to saying that, they've offered to help us host a collaborative effort on the mayor's website, which will be Summerscape, which is going to launch any day, and that's why I didn't bring a big thing today, but it'll be ready to go. It's going to be a collaboration of everything from feeding sites to summer programs, all of rec and parks. We're adding it all in, everything Family League funds. The challenge is going to be, though, for a lot of this, by the time we get it in there, those programs will close. We've got to get aways with that technology to be really real time, but it'll be a starting point. And what we're interested in is, I know through VRI, BPD and others would like to have access to this tool, so literally on the street they can pull it up and say there's a place for you to get lunch here, there's a program that's open these hours here, and you'll at least be able to do that. And then that summer planning group wants to take the lead on starting to bring in the non-funded groups, churches, small groups, to start to enter all this almost open source on that site and build it from there.
So just out of curiosity, I mean, so me trying to figure out how to phrase this. So let's say late fall 18, as we move into winter, somebody somewhere will sit down with the data from Summerscape 18 and start putting together Summerscape 19. They'll have all of the stuff from this past summer that they can just call or email these places and make sure this stuff is still happening, and if not, what is happening instead. What I'm kind of looking for is, where is that whoever the person or people are doing that, where are they housed, such that if we have people who approach us and say, we're doing a such and such program, how do we get the word out? We say, oh, you need to make sure that the Summerscape people know to put you in their list. They're at blank.
Right. And we're going to need a much better answer for that for you. We wanted to get it up and running before summer hit. That infrastructure piece is huge.
Okay.
We're sort of doing it ad hoc right now.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So does the answer to that become one of the things that people get back to us on?
It can be.
Yeah. I just like that would be something that would come back to the committee when you have the specifics of where it's going to be.
So do you mind restating that so Marguerite can get that down?
Where are the people updating Summerscape going to sit? I'm sorry. What agency or entity is going to be responsible for the regular updating and expanding of Summerscape?
Thank you. Okay. Councilwoman Sneed.
Thank you. I'm just curious, all the way down for each department that's listed here, if we are able to get information out for youth that English is not their first language.
I can tell you what we're doing in Rec and Park, as we just released our first ever summer guide, and what we're doing in our office now is we're converting that into Spanish as well, so that we can get that out, and it will be also on our websites.
All right, thank you. Can we just go down the list then? Family League as well, health department. Are we doing bilingual? Anything around?
So no, one of the things that Terry had mentioned, so when we were hosting kind of the super summer activities, we were making sure that the collateral was always bilingual, and we do that with a lot of our marketing collateral that's engaging a number of young people, specifically in areas where we know that there are much more diverse populations. We partner with a lot of our respective lead agencies to really do a lot of that outreach, but that's something in an area that we definitely need to grow on, where it becomes much more intentional.
For MOED, we have in the centers, of course, we have language lines and things like that. In terms of YouthWorks, YouthWorks is a very community-oriented program, and so we partner with a number of community organizations that have stronger ties to various communities, and work with them to make sure that non-English speakers have access to the services wherever we can.
Perfect, thank you.
Hi, Megan McCorkle with the Enoch Pratt Free Library. So at the library, we translate a lot of our marketing materials depending on which languages are more prevalent in certain ones of our branches. So there are flyers out there in, say, our Southeast Anchor branch, our Patterson Park branch, that are translated in both English and Spanish. We also do story times in both English and Spanish. We have Buena Casa, Buena Brasa, and that also occurs in our Southeast Anchor branch. We have another community-based story time in our Waverly branch that I believe is Mandarin and English as well. So we try and cater to all communities in our specific neighborhoods that are not English as a first language.
Thank you.
In the Bureau of School Health, we translate our forms that we send home to parents into different languages. We also, our staff have access to Language Line during the day, so that if a student comes in who has who needs translation, they can provide those services.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Shannon Burrows, Campbell, Baltimore City Head Start. We translate all of our recruitment and application materials into different languages to try to meet where the family and what language they speak. We also hire staff so that the children who do not speak English as their first language are representative of those languages that those children speak, and we speak those in our classrooms. We also have our classrooms outfitted in bilingual materials as well as bilingual information to showcase, like the name of a chair is done in several different languages.
Thank you. Can I have one more? And so my next question is for Human Services. Can we talk a little bit about the homeless population and kind of moving folks from one camp to the next camp?
So Councilwoman Sneed, at 3:30, we're going to have a whole panel specifically
I'll
on
wait
homeless
then.
services.
So that completes my question. Thank you.
Council President.
Thank you. This is for the Mayor's Office of Human Services. In the fiscal 2018 budget, Mayor's Office of Homeless Service received money for out-of-school time programming that had been allocated to the Family League. How much money does the Mayor's Office of Human Service have for out-of-school time and after-school programming? And I want you to describe where those dollars sit, who oversees them, and the process by which they go out to communities. And of that total dollar figure, what percentage does the Mayor's Office of Human Services and the Baltimore City Foundation keep for administrative costs?
Got it. Let me just grab my breakdown real quick.
I'll give you this. I just lumped them together because I only can ask 2 questions. So I lumped them in.
All right, Mr. President. So in FY18, the Mayor's Office of Human Services we were asked by the mayor to administer $2.58 million that came in through that supplemental request last year. 1.48 million funded youth programs at 42 locations serving 1,100 youth. 574,000 was subgranted to the Family League for programs aligned with the community school OST strategy. 330,000 funded 16 summer programs at 16 locations serving 400 youth. Let me give you the admin breakdown real quick. $40,000 supported stipends and administrative costs for the Baltimore City Youth Commission, and $157,000, approximately 6%, went to administrative costs for staff that administered the RFP. No costs went to the Baltimore City Foundation.
Okay. Do your organization provide technical assistance to these organizations?
So our organization provided one-on-one technical assistance and support. Most of the groups that we funded with that out-of-school time grant were smaller first-time recipients. So Holly and the team worked with them pretty directly on working them through different issues.
What's the average amount that one organization will get?
Holly, what was the average? The average award through the OST grants?
She had to come to the mic unless she tell you.
Yeah, I figured she could. It wasn't big. If it was $50,000, that was probably a lot. I think it was even less than that. What's that? $50,000 was the largest grant that we made.
Okay, because
I'll get you the exact amount.
Okay, you can send it to the committee, because what I was worried about, if it was a large one, do they comply with the local hire?
Oh, right. It all applied if it was that amount, but none of those are big enough. We also tried to only fund one site for groups that had multiple sites to try to spread it out as much as we could.
Okay, thank you. This is for the Family League. The data for the percentage of parents that rate parent-family involvement at their schools. Somebody answered it. Oh, she did. Okay. All right, you can sit back down. It was already asked. See, we have a lot of things going on with the budget. We're, talking to the administration, and that's why you see us going in and out, because, you know, working this budget through, there's priorities that the council have, and, you know, we're trying to help some organizations with their money. So that's why you see us running in and out. So I don't want anybody to think that we're not paying attention and we don't know what's going on. Most of us, if not all of us, read these budget books, and we know exactly what's going on, and this is a part of our negotiation process. Okay, just want everybody to know that.
You done? You have no more questions? Councilwoman Sneed.
I'm not sure if this question was asked already, but with all the departments that's listed down here, did you guys talk about how many youth you plan to hire this year for the summer? And if you are hiring any youth, was that already asked? Perfect. All right, I'll check back. Thank you. No, not the overall, but each agency that's on this list.
So,
No.
Jay, I don't know if you want to. I don't know if we listed out the numbers per agency.
I would be curious to know how many are planning to, each agency on this list is how many do they plan to get for each one? I'm just curious.
We can submit a list to the council for that of each city agency and the number that they've made a commitment to. But yes, we can absolutely do that. We have
Perfect. Thank you.
Did you get that down? Any other?
Margaret,
President.
I just want you to put down on there as one of our questions that each agency send us their organization chart with the salaries of the employees, race of employees, and whether they are Baltimore City, you know, where they live. That's for every agency.
So being no further questions, I want to thank the panelists for your time and your presentations and for your responses to all of our questions. This committee is in recess to 3:30, where we'll focus on homeless services. Thank you.